Have you ever wanted to give your chat the ability to take Twitch clips without having to go to the bottom of the screen, click the clip button, and then edit down their clip and then publish it and then post the link into chat? Well, it's not as hard as what you think. You can actually do this very quickly with the Twitch API. So the first thing that you're going to need to do, this is also assuming that you have already created a Twitch bot, and if you haven't, this is a much later video in my Create a Twitch Bot from Scratch playlist, and I'll leave a link down to that in the description. But if you've already created a Twitch bot, you should be able to follow along with this as well. So in the same folder as your Twitch bot, you want to create a new JSON file, and you want to call this createdclips.json. And in here, you want to have two attributes. You want to have a date attribute, and you can just start this off with just an empty string if you want. And you want a clips attribute, which you can just start as an empty array. And with the structure of what you're seeing here, you can already see a little bit of what we're going to be doing. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to create a new global variable, and we are going to call this clips created. We want this to be equal to an empty array. And so what this is going to hold is the address to every clip that's going to be taken by your Twitch chat. And the reason that we want this is the way that the Twitch API works with clipping is that it will save a edit URL to this array, so that if you wanted to go ahead and edit the clips that your chat takes, you have 24 hours to do so with the edit URLs that are provided by the Twitch API. Otherwise, what it's going to save is just the last 30 seconds previous to when your chat took the clip. So next what we want to do is we want to actually open the created clips JSON file that I just told you to create a moment ago. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a try catch block, and your catch is going to have the parameter of file error. And in your catch block, all you really want to do is just have a console log of the file error itself. But in your try block, what you want to do is you want to have a new constant called clips on file equal to a file system call .readFileSync, and you're going to be looking for the created clips.json file that I just told you about a moment ago. And then we want to parse the data that we just pulled in from the file. So what we're going to do is we're going to create another constant. We're going to call that parsed clips. And that's going to be equal to a JSON.parse of the clips on file. And next, we want to have a conditional. And this conditional is going to check if the parsed clips.date is equal to the current date of whatever day you're streaming on. And the reason for this is we want to save clips for just the day of the stream that you're actually doing. So even if you do multiple streams within the day, you can still save to the same array. And because, like I said, the created clips with the Twitch API are only good for the first 24 hours after those clips are taken by your chat. So you want to say a new date dot to date string. So if you're still working within the same day, what you want to do is you want to reassign your clips created variable to the parsed clips dot clips. So you can simply just continue working with the same clip data that you were working with before instead of overriding it. However, if it's not the same day, you'll just keep working with a new array. And now that we have that set up, we actually need to create a new function in order to actually take the clip whenever chat calls for it. So what we're going to do is we are going to create a new arrow function. We're going to say const create Twitch clip equal to a function with no parameters, and we need this to be an async function. And then within this function, what we're going to do is we're going to make a call to the Twitch API, So we're going to need to do a post request to the Twitch API. So we're going to say await.axios.post. And as always, whenever I do these Axios calls, we do the call, and then we have a then block, and then we have a catch block, just to make this easier to, string along as we go. And this is just preference for me, but I always like to get the catch blocks earlier. So I'll bring this stuff down for readability. Then I will say within the catch block, we have an error parameter leading into an arrow function. And what we're going to do is we're actually first going to check if our error message is equal to request failed with status code 401, like this. So if this is the case, what this means is that our Twitch user access token has expired. So what we're going to need to do is actually refresh it. So what we're going to do is we're going to first log out that we've gotten a status 401 so that, in case we need to debug things, we know where things are going wrong. And then we're going to call the get refresh user access token. And this is a function that I wrote a few videos back that I will leave the video for that in the description, because it was actually quite an ordeal to get the user access token and set up their ability to get the refresh token for that whenever your user access token expires. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set timeout to an arrow function with a delay of 3 seconds that all it does is it will actually just run the create Twitch clip function again so that it will take the clip that was requested even if you need to refresh your user access token, because otherwise it would just say, oh, your access token expired, and then it won't take the clip. So with this, it actually has an opportunity to then take your clip. So then otherwise, we are just going to log out, error taking clip, colon and a space, followed by a comma, and then you want to have your error name. So error.name, then another comma, and then your error.message, which again will just help you with debugging purposes should you need it. Then we're going to come back up to our post request up here. So we're going to now call the address that we're looking for, which is going to be, I'll copy and paste it, it's right here. So what we're doing is we are calling the clips section of the Twitch API, and it's looking for the broadcaster ID, which we pull in from our configuration, which I set up in one of the previous videos, and the broadcaster ID. And the post request of Axios, if you're using a set of HTML headers, or HTTP headers, sorry, you need to have 3 arguments. So the first one is the address that you're calling. The second is the request body, which in this case we don't have one, so we just need to say null. And the last one is the HTTP headers themselves, which I will just copy and paste in here. This is just a JSON object with the headers attribute, and we have the headers attribute being another JSON object containing the client ID, this is case sensitive, with your Twitch API key, which I'm pulling in from my configuration file, and the authorization being the user access token that we needed to refresh just a moment ago if it had expired. And mind you, this is a bearer token, so you need to have bearer as a string in front of it with a space. Now, within your then block, what we're going to do is we're going to have a response parameter leading in to an arrow function. Within this arrow function, we're going to have a try-catch block, and we're needing the try-catch block because we're going to be doing more file system shenanigans. So in our catch block, we just want to have a parameter of response error. And just like before, within our catch, all we're going to be doing is we're going to log out the response error, just like so. Now within our try block, this is where the fun begins. What we're first going to do is we're going to make a constant called the clip data. So this is what we're receiving from Twitch that is relating to the clip that your chat just took. And so to get this, it's going to be response.data and .data, and this is kind of weird. So the response.data is the data object that you're pulling in from Twitch, and then there's another data object within it that has the clip data. It's kind of weird how they structured that. Or it's just kind of, weird how Node does this with Axios, and then Twitch has the same naming structure. And so, but anyway, so then this data object is an array. So you need the first element of that array. So you want to say response.data.data at element 0. And then what you want to do is you want to take that clips created array that we made earlier, and we're going to push to that the clip data, and this is a JSON object, and the element that, or the attribute that we're looking for is the edit URL. So edit underscore URL like this. And so this is going to push the URL that you can edit for 24 hours to trim or expand the clip that your chat took, like I said, within the first 24 hours of its creation. And then to make sure that you can actually access this whenever your stream is over, what we're going to do is we're going to write this to a file, specifically to the created clips JSON file that I mentioned earlier. So what we're going to do is we're going to say fs.write file, and this is going to take in a few arguments. So the first one is going to be the file that we're saving to. In this case, we need it to be a string. We're going to call it created clips.json. And then the second parameter is going to be a JSON.stringify, which also takes in a few parameters. So the first one is going to be a JSON object, and that object is going to be the same attributes that I mentioned from the created clips.json file that we mentioned earlier. So the first one is going to be date, and that is going to be equal to a new date object dot to date string. So it just gives you a nice human readable string that you can also check against. And then we want the clips attribute to be the clips created array that we just pushed the clip data to. Then right after this, we want to have another argument within the JSON stringify. We want to just say comma null and then 2, which just formats the data to look cleaner if you need to actually read the JSON file. Then the last argument of the write file call is just going to be a callback function. So we're going to have a callback function with an error parameter. That is just going to be a quick if we have an error, then just log out the error. Otherwise, we simply log out that we have successfully saved to the created clips JSON file, and I'll just copy and paste that in. So it should look something like this, but of course you can put in whatever you want. And that's actually everything that you need in order to make the Twitch API take a clip for you. Now to let your Twitch chat actually trigger this, what you want to do is you want to go down to your chat message handler, which, whenever you set up your Twitch bot, that should have been one of the first things you set up. And I set up a clip command right here. And if this is looking like absolute Greek to you, I recently did a video that lets you take vertical clips with the Atom vertical plugin, and I'll leave a link to the video down below, that will actually save a vertical clip that is separate from your normal 16:9 Twitch clips. to your computer so that you can more easily get into things like YouTube Shorts and TikToks and Instagram Reels and all of that. So I'll leave a link to that video down in the description. And this is all open source, so it should be pretty self-explanatory once you dig into the code to see what's going on here. But if you want an explanation, leave a comment and I may consider making a video explaining how that works. But within this clip command, I have a set timeout right here. And within this set timeout, all we need to do is call the create Twitch clips. And this is a async call, so we need to say wait and then create Twitch clip. And so what this is going to do is, and you can just have this just right under a exclamation point clip command. But what I did is, just like to explain a little bit, is I have this set, the clip command set on a 1 minute cooldown so that you can't just spam the clip command and just like flood your chat with clips that may or may not need to be edited, and then you may need to go back and then curate your clips to get rid of the duplicates and, all that stuff. And because this clip command that's taking things in a vertical format is also saving things to your computer, you also don't want people just flooding your hard drive with clips and potentially, frying your computer. So I have this on a 1 minute cooldown. And I also set a timer that waits for 5 seconds. So whenever this is also cooled down and the clip command is run, what it's going to do is it's going to wait 5 seconds before actually taking a Twitch clip so that you can get a little bit of a buffer for, say, if something happens and someone just hurries up and hits the clip command, you get a little bit of a buffer to work with just in case a little bit happened, that's still relevant right after the clip command was triggered. But all in all, this is everything that you need to know in order to allow your Twitch chat to create clips just by simply typing exclamation point clip. Again, this is a parallel video to the creating vertical clips video that I just made recently, and I'll leave a link again to that in the description. So with that said, if you would like more, click the thumbnail to the video right above my head. If I have another video in the Create a Twitch Bot from Scratch playlist, it'll be right there. Otherwise, I will let YouTube recommend something, and their recommendation system is actually pretty good. So it should send you to something that you would like. But until we meet again, feel free to like and subscribe. That would help me out a lot. And Jesus loves you. Stay awesome.